abstract. Yeah, it's complicated what you say, the way you act. Well, it makes me so confused. I don't know what to do anymore. Can't you just make up your mind? My heart drops when you play around. How can you be up when I'm down? Don't wanna think about it right now. Maybe you just wanna be friends, but there is a fight when we are talking. Maybe you just wanna pretend, but I can read between the lines. Even if I can't deny that all the things you said are hurting, still wanna be with you. I think you want it too. 'Cause baby, I don't wanna be.
Hey everyone, hope you're doing well. If the background looks a little different than normal, it's because I am at a weekend retreat. I escaped for 4 days, and so I'm kind of hiding up in a room upstairs while everyone else is crafting downstairs. So this is not my craft room. Those of you who have watched me before know that this is not my space. But for those who are questioning it, and if the picture looks a little bit odd, that's why I'm enjoying a weekend away. So I'm going to introduce myself and talk about the project. I did see that somebody asked, why Miss Carrie? Let's see. When our kids were younger, we have I have a friend that has a Southern background, and her kids always called me Miss Carrie. And then when I went into teaching, I did special needs in that realm. And it was much easier for them to call me Miss Carrie than it was to use my last name. And then that just kind of carried over when I went to choose a name for crafting. It just went into using Miss Carrie. So that's a great question. So my project, I didn't pack it, so I hope you guys can visually remember it or go to the site and see. I taught heat embossing. I'm seeing there's some people like commenting. Yeah, Vanessa, yay, I got away. I taught heat embossing, and I wanted to make sure that the heat embossed cards not only taught you guys like the basics of how to heat emboss, but I know some of you have already kind of entered the realm of heat embossing, and some of you kind of wanted to be able to, like, how do I amp it up a level? Things like embossing vellum. We went over embossing vellum and how to add some color to your embossing. I did see somebody already made a card with some leaves and stuff, and it turned out great. I love how she colored in the leaves and did the heat embossing and that kind of stuff. So that's what I did. I'm kind of like going to scan through real quick. Yeah, some people said, yeah, my name was Mrs. Z. Gloria, I'm glad you like the tips about heat embossing vellum. I think that's something a lot of people want to do, but they never quite get it right. And so, yeah, I knew that was something I definitely wanted to teach, was the heat embossing vellum. What are my favorite embossing powders? That's a good question. So I usually have, like, I stuck with the Ranger realm because that's what I started with. I have kind of encroached a little bit into using some WOW. I do like Brutus Monroe. He has some really great fine embossing powders that are great for text. WOW, I've used a couple. I don't really use colorful embossing powders. One, I'm on a budget and I don't have a lot of space in my craft room. But what I usually end up doing is I usually just use a pigment ink in a color, and then I put clear embossing powder over it. So I really don't collect a lot of colorful embossing powders. Most of mine are black, silver, clear, white, glow in the dark. You know, they're very basic because I do just use a pigment ink, and then I put something over the top of it. So like I said, usually I stick to Ranger. Brutus Monroe, I do like his finer embossing powders are really nice. And then I've done a little bit with WOW, not a whole lot. Where do I get my designs from? Wow, that's a loaded question. I don't know. I mean, I've been doing this, 15-ish years. I'm trying to think. So I think there's like, I don't know, for those of you who have done card making for a while, there's kind of those standard designs that you like always use, you know, a strip on the right panel and a big thing in the left. And, you know, I think there's some of those standard like designs that you always use, and then you just add a little bit to it, you know, instead of doing a square sentiment, you do a circle sentiment. You know, instead of adding a flower this time we're going to put, you know, a little bicycle or a flag. So I think I really kind of stick to like some of the basic designs, that the structural designs I know. I have a lot of card sketches that I have on my site. Like you can get a free sketch guide that I give out on my site. And if you're part of my newsletter list, I give out a card and a scrapbooking sketch every month. So I do a lot of just kind of designs on my own. But a lot of times it's just those standard, this is kind of what I've always used. I don't know. How are you guys with that? You know, sometimes you just have those structured, you know, you always use it, you know, that kind of thing. So Arlene S., I'm new to heat embossing. So far, I have overheated it more than not. That is a common problem. And I do talk about it in the video a little bit. If you go to the site with my freebie, there's also like the 10 tips of what not to do with heat embossing. And I do talk about overheating with that. It's very easy to overheat embossing powder because, I mean, you just think, oh, do I need to go a little bit longer? I recommend to beginners, the way I showed in my video, to heat emboss from the bottom instead of the top. If you actually hold your heat gun a little bit farther away when you're first starting to heat emboss, and that kind of just slows down that heat process, that setting of the powder, and it gives you that little bit more time where it's not direct heat. I think people also hold their heat gun a little too close to the powder, where then it heats up really, really fast, and then suddenly it's overheated. So I would suggest, you know, maybe start holding that heat gun a little bit further away. And then like the minute you see it start to get shiny, or like some are more of the matte, but whenever you see those plastic pellets start to melt, just pull it away. You can always add more heat later if needed, but you can never go back and take the heat away. Okay, I hope that helps. My website address is misscarriescreations.com. All right, you mentioned stitching on your card in your video. What stitch width do you use when stitching on cards in Vellum? Okay, so cardstock is a little bit different than Vellum. I set my tension between 3 and 4, and I set my stitch width at around 3-ish. I have gone down to 2 with cardstock. If I'm using a zigzag, of course, it goes a little bit bigger. But I stick around 3. With Vellum, I do a wider stitch. I actually go up to 4 because with Vellum, the stitching can tear the Vellum. So you definitely want a wider stitch. But my tension usually stays around 3 to 4, and then my stitch width is about the same. Like I said, if it's a zigzag or I have some embroidery stitches, those do change. But usually that's about where I am. Different machines are going to be different, so you may just want to practice. What are my favorite types of cards to make? Oh my goodness. Yeah, another question. I do like fun folds. Those are always fun. We have our older son is very artistic, and he always did origami as a child. And so those fun folds kind of remind me of origami. I just put out a video today that was a fun fold on my YouTube channel. I'm one who really likes layered vintage looking cards, but I'm trying to encroach more on the, cutesy realm too. So, I mean, I think I'm kind of all over, but I know I do like fun folds. Fun folds are always a fun one to make. Do you heat emboss a lot of vellum for your cards? I use a lot of vellum all over. I'm not only heat embossing vellum, I cut leaves from vellum. I use vellum on my scrapbook pages when I put like some of the text on the vellum when I'm journaling. But I do a lot of heat embossing with vellum. Vellum is also really pretty to cut your flowers and leaves from, to cut some of your layers from. I love using vellum. If you want, there's some different vellum types out there. I do recommend that if you're going to heat emboss vellum, make sure it's a heavier weight vellum. I do have a heavier weight vellum that I use, that's on my supply list. The heavier weight definitely is much easier to heat emboss, especially when you're new to it, because you just have that, it's a thicker vellum where you're less likely to burn it. But there are some sites out there that you can buy like bulk wetting vellum. Just know that that's going to be a lot thinner. Okay, so it's going to act a little bit different. Okay. Where do I get my inspiration? That's a good question. I mean, I have my favorite creators that I follow. We all have that list of people that were like, oh my gosh, I would have never thought of that, you know? So there are some people I get, you know, inspiration from. And honestly, a lot of times I hate to say it, but I just wing it. I mean, I'll, I'll just kind of, I'll play around with something and I'll remember, oh, a painting I saw that, you know, the way it was designed. Or, I mean, I'll go to craft stores this time of year. And if you go to the sign section and you see like where somebody laid the flowers and the text, those kind of things like make my brain go, oh, I would have never thought to lay it out that way. So it's just kind of all over the place. Who would I love to craft with in real life? Oh, that's a hard question. I mean, all the speakers that are on this summit are great. I mean, I would love, you know, to sit down. But you know, when you think about like some of the really big names, you know, there's a couple of people that I'm like, ooh, I would really love to sit down with like uh some of the designers of the dies and stamps. You know, I would love to sit down, you know, people who come up with the flower designs or the stamp designs and like pick their brain why they put, you know, why they drew the flower the way they did or something. I would love to see some of the artists that draw those things out. I think that would be, to me, that would be really fun to watch. Do you participate and make cards from other purchase centers when you can? Oh, I wish I had time. You know, there are some like I'll go back through and I'll look at some of their different videos and things and I'll be like, "Ooh, I want to try that technique." I don't know that I ever replicate a card, but I love picking up the different techniques from the presenters. They always show tips and tricks that you're like, "Oh, I would have never thought of that." You know, so I do like picking up different techniques from them. That's always really great. Oh, I love someone said Carol Duvall. Oh my gosh. My older son and I used to watch Carol Duvall together. Some people probably have no idea who she is. Oh. Oh, what are my three favorite crafting tools? Okay, so the Cricut's going to be up there because if you follow me forever, you know I do use the Cricut, especially a lot for paper crafting. I do a lot of paper crafting Cricut videos, and I have my 5-minute Cricut classes that I have on YouTube. So the Cricut is one I use a lot. I use my sewing machine a ton. I use my sewing machine way more than I need. And I would have to say, what would be the other one? My radio. No. Okay. Do you create while traveling? I do actually. My husband and I are missionaries in Colorado, New Mexico, and Texas. And I will take things with me. I've even been known, like we had a graduation that was like 2 hours away, and I took a bunch of fussy cutting stuff. You know, sometimes you have to fussy cut all the little flowers out, or, you know, and I'll take those things with me. And I will do stuff on the road. You know, it's fun. Say, have I used the Brother Scan and Cut? I did see that. What do you do with the cards you make? That's really good. You know, when you're a card maker and you're making like doubles, you know, for presenting, or you have a lot, you can only give away so many cards. I do have some friends and family that come take cards occasionally, and they're like, they'll grab a bundle. We have some friends that I'll send bundles of cards to. But the other thing, I would really encourage you guys to look into the different things. Like scrapbook.com has cards for kindness. Barely Arts has the cards for Cubs. I would really encourage you card makers to look into those, because we all have like a whole stack of cards that we may never use someday, and we keep making more and more cards. I would really encourage you guys to look into those. I'm going to be sending a couple stacks off here soon because those are really big. I would really encourage you to look into those different. There's some military ones. Military is a little bit more sensitive what they're allowed to send, but I would really encourage you card makers to look into those different organizations. Have I used the Brother Scan and Cut? That is not something I have used, Millie. That's something that is on my list because there are some stamp sets that don't come with dies, or there's like some patterns that I'll draw flowers that I watercolor, and I would love to be able to, go around them instead of fussy cut, because the older I get, the less patience I have. So that's something that I have looked at in the future. Let's see. Do you listen to music when you craft? If so, yeah. Oh, that's a loaded question, Millie. I probably have a friend watching this right now giggling. I do listen to music when I craft. I prefer music over TV. I mean, I'm a musician at heart. But the music I listen to is very loud, mosh pit type music. I'll stop there. What is one favorite project that you have made? I will tell you that our daughter got married last year, and I truly enjoyed sitting down with her and helping her create all the things for her wedding. I think that just having that personal touch, and our whole family got involved. Our oldest son and his wife did all the flower arrangements and all the bouquets and all the decorations. One of our sons did all the welding for some iron work. One son helped build things. I was on my Cricut with my daughter and we were doing things. And so I think that to me was like one of my favorite projects ever. Which Cricut machine do I use most? So I have, let's see, I've had an Air 2, which I just gave to our son. I have a Maker, and I have the original Joy. And honestly, I do use the Maker a lot, and I think it's just because it does have a few more tools to it, and I do a lot of scrapbook pages, so I like having the bigger width. But when I like traveling to a retreat, I'll tell you that Joy is so much easier to bring with me. I mean, I can just pack it in its little bag and bring it. So I think I use them quite a bit, both of them about the same. Do I have a Pinterest site? Great question, Dan. I think I know you. I do have a Pinterest site. So anything, TikTok, Pinterest, YouTube, all of those places, it's Miss Carrie's Creations. I kept my my name the same on all of the sites. So I've got Pinterest, and I've got just anywhere you want to go, all your favorite places. Yeah, Hannah, Miss Carrie is getting down to death metal. Yeah. That made me giggle. So I'm trying to figure out, Skillet's a good one. Yes. All right, guys, I do want to thank you for joining me and for putting up with kind of the odd background. And if there were any background noises, I do apologize. But I hope that you guys really enjoyed learning how to heat emboss. Don't forget to grab that download. It is available for a limited time, so make sure you snag it. And then if you're a VIP, make sure there is an additional class that you get where you use the exact same supplies to make more heat embossed cards. So make sure you catch all of those things before time runs out. And feel free to ask me any questions in the group. If you have them, I am happy to answer. All right, guys, thank you so much for joining me and giggling along with me and asking all your questions. Hope you have a great weekend.